fun this year. We went to improv.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that sort of counted. That was a fun night, though. So yeah, welcome. We do appreciate you coming and taking time out of your busy schedule and coming in the rain. And we couldn't do this without your support. So thank you for coming. Another question we like to ask is: anyone hiring for any Agile positions or any positions? Anyone hiring?
I need 2 product analysts and a product manager.
Well, there we go. Paymark. Okay.
Oh,
Settle down. I know where you work. Is anyone looking for a job? Well, there we go. Look at all this. 2 heads. 2 heads. So what kind of job are you looking for?
Business analyst.
Okay. Look where you sat down. Project manager. Okay. Anyone else? Who else is looking?
Project manager.
Okay.
Project coordinator.
Project coordinator. Who did I just talk to that's looking for a project coordinator? Somebody. Find me after and I'll try to remember.
Cool. Thank you.
Scrum Master.
Okay, Scrum Master, good. Look, this is what this community is about.
Beth, one more.
Yes. Who else is looking? Yes.
business analyst, product owner.
A little bit of everything. I know Zero is looking for product owners. Okay. Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Also Danish Shopping.
Yeah, so look, this is what it's about, right? Network, LinkedIn each other, get to know each other, right? We are one big happy community. So I'm Beth Geraci, I'm the president of Agile Auckland. So when you come to these, you'll usually see me up here or one of my esteemed committee, and we run these lovely meetups. So this is our annual general meeting. We'll just get the party started. Oh, there we go. Let's see. I'm gonna mess this up. Why do we do an AGM? Here's our agenda. Financial position, we'll go through the committee. We do have a new mission and purpose. We'll go through some achievements that we had in the last year and some upcoming events. There we go. Why do we do this? We are an incorporated society, Agile Auckland, and so it's a constitutional requirement as an incorporated society in Auckland. It's important for you guys to understand the activities of the society. That's why you're here, hopefully. And we're going to elect nominated members to the executive committee. So we do this every year. Our financial year, our calendar year ends March 31st, and we have to hold an AGM within 5 months of that. So last year, I think it was in May. Couldn't quite get our act together, so this time it's in July. There we go. Here's our financial position. We lost a sponsor, but we gained a sponsor. So you'll see this happening every year. So I know there's like a loss because we spent more than we made, but we do have some money in the bank. So we're always looking for new sponsors. So we can bring in some speakers, have some activities, maybe cater some events. We've done that before, like pizza and beer, and always over cater because I cater to the meetup RSVP instead of the meetup reality. So if you come to a meeting that's catered, you're gonna walk away with beer and pizza, okay, guaranteed. Because I'm Italian and I always over-order anyway. All right, the current committee. So this was, again, the calendar year that ended March 31st. So the president, me, the treasurer, Joe Mills, secretary, Jim Buchan. Events, we used to have an event coordinator, Bargaby. I'm sure some of you know her. She's been in the community a long time. James Barton Jr. was in charge of membership. Fraser was sponsorship, and Luke is marketing. So we want to thank our outgoing committee members. A lot of people resigned due to time commitment, so we've revamped the committee. And it's very exciting. I'm super excited to announce our nominees. So hopefully you'll all let me be president again. Fraser has put his hand up to be the treasurer. Joe resigned, again, due to time commitments. Matul will be secretary. Marketing and social media is Luke. Membership is Selena. Sponsorship is Amar. And we do have some extra committee members that fill in and do whatever is necessary. Jim, Shane, and Wei. And I'd like our committee members to come up for just a minute, please. A little bit of embarrassment. It's good. Vulnerability. That's what it's all about. So we are a team of 9. We are the perfect Scrum team. And this is how we're going to be running the society from now on. So we are one team. We hold fortnightly stand-ups. This is not what I was thinking. Fortnightly stand-ups, and we hold monthly executive committee meetings to determine the direction and the future of Agile Auckland. So we're always looking for your input. So these are the faces. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves, your name, your role, not your role in Agile Auckland, but like what you do for real life, okay? And then you're each going to have to answer one of these questions. So I have these great little quick query cards. My friend Carrie makes these.
It's a surprise.
Huh?
We
I
didn't
know.
about this.
I know you didn't know about this. Look, we're being agile. Okay. There we go.
Capital
There we
A,
go.
small a.
All right. So who wants to go first?
Okay.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wayne. I'm Agile coach at New Zealand Post. Yeah, really excited to be part of the committee to kind of revamp. I think Beth said earlier. I think there's definitely some more energy that can be brought back in. I consider myself a bit of an energetic person, so I'm hoping to bring some energy back to the crew. My question is, name one song that gets stuck in your head when you hear it. So the Friday song, it's
Can you
Friday.
sing?
I think I did that. Catch Me at Karaoke.
Oh, there we
pretty
go.
good at that, so,
See, I didn't.
yeah.
I should have said, "What's your secret talent, karaoke?"
Cool.
Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Buchan, sometimes called Jim Bouchon.
Fancy, fancy.
That's my French. I'm a lecturer and researcher at AUT. I'm part of the Agile Auckland because I really want to commit to giving back to the community, and I think the kinds of things that we share and do is really going to boost NZ Inc. in terms of the whole software scene. So that's sort of my commitment. This is a very interesting one. It says, can you roll your tongue? And do you know, I'm the only member of my family. I've got 4 kids. They can all roll their tongue. My wife can roll her tongue. And I cannot roll my tongue. And I have tried and I've tried.
It's because you roll your R's instead.
What have you seen there, boy? I am Scottish, by the way. I cannot roll my tongue. I can roll
good.
my R's.
Good to know. It's not a requirement to be on the committee.
There you go. That was like...
Yeah. Right. Nice.
Hi everyone, my name's Luke Pivac, and I've been on the Agile committee for a year and a half now. I do the social media stuff, so I write a blog called Agile It. You might have seen it and then post somewhere, and I'm trying to increase those over time, so I might write something about tonight's event. I got into Agile because for me it just it resonated really well, and I just love writing about it, talking about it, and just living and breathing it. It's really cool. And I'm so stoked with the Agile 2.0 team, and I'm really proud to be a member of this amazing committee. Everyone's really talented, and I'm really looking forward to the year ahead. And anyway, enough about me. What was your favourite toy when you were a kid? Okay, I remember one Christmas, 1987, I unwrapped my present, and it was a Transformer, a Decepticon. It was a blue one called Soundwave. It was awesome. You could transform him into a cassette, and he had like little cassettes coming out of him into like Buzzsaw and a few other ones like
Could
Freezy.
it really animate?
I just love Transformers, but yeah,
that gets you up.
that was cool. I just loved it. It was awesome. And they don't make them like that anymore, and I wish they did. But anyway, yeah,
True.
it's my favourite toy.
Nice.
Hi, my name's Selena. I'm with Water Care at the moment. I've been part of their transformation project and had jack of all trades, I think, a number of roles. Mostly as Scrum Master on the project, but do BA work and delivery work as well. My question is, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Well, I'd love to say Scrum Master, I didn't even know what that was. So I'd have to say probably an international explorer, travelling the world, would have been my goal as a child, which I've sort of done quite a bit of, so there you go. And yeah, I love working in Agile, and it's going to be great being part of this committee of this group of people.
Awesome. Hi guys, I'm Mitu, and I'm with the Agile community since I came in New Zealand, and this is the first meetup I came to introduce, and I've made so many friends here as well, like starting with the Beth, Jacob, and I got so many mentors, and it's really good friends, like where you can share and have the amazing knowledge. So far I have worked in New Zealand for 4.5 years as a project manager and Scrum Master, and currently looking for the opportunities. My question is, what are your favorite pizza toppings? I like the spicy things, and I think I can say jalapenos is one of the things.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
My name is Amar. I'm a new adult coach to the space. I currently work in Les Mills, and really, I learn real fast that what drives me is people and community. So I figured if I want to be better at being an adult coach, I can join a meetup, join an organization, and because of all the people and talking to everybody, I should learn something. I'm hoping. That's why I'm on this committee. Definitely not the expert of the group. My question. Have you ever tested a battery by sticking it on your tongue? So this is quite embarrassing. I have 3 children. Not only do I do that, I've taught them how to do that. So, good parenting, bad parenting, I'm not sure, but yeah. All about honesty and transparency.
As long as they're alive, right?
Yes.
The essential skill.
Parenting, right?
It's your turn.
No.
No, you gotta tell us about
Okay, they're
yourself.
forcing me. I'm Beth Gervaisi. Thank you, Jim. I'm an Agile coach at ANZ. For that, I was a coach consultant with Assurity. My question is, not my glasses, maybe someone has to hold this for me. Would you rather take the scenic route or the fastest route? Scenic every time, especially in New Zealand, right? It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and I don't get car sick, so it's awesome. All right.
In New Zealand, there's only one route. That's the city.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, guys.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
One way to go in, one way to go out.
Nice.
Run the pool.
So, as members of Agile Auckland, I am bound by the Constitution to ask, are there any objections to these nominations? No? No objections. So, all the ayes, hold your hand up, please. Okay, good. So wait, Matul, you're the secretary, so count hands. Hold them high. 2 hands count. No, it's all good. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. And look for great things to come this year. We're super excited. Okay. So we formed this Scrum team. This was over the past couple months. It was quite a journey to get this team together. And one of the first things we did was we did an exercise to create our new vision and purpose. So mission and purpose, to inspire the Agile community to excellence through learning, thought leadership, and embracing an Agile mindset and values. So that will be our new mission and theme. You'll see it throughout the year. We're going to get a new sign because this one's way too big to carry. So that's really why we did this, because I needed a new slogan to justify getting a new sign.
A shorter one too.
Shorter, yeah, just something easier to carry. Okay. So some of our achievements last year, we culled our membership database. Our membership database is through Meetup. And so what we did was we took people out that have not been active since the end of 2017. So that brings us down to 1650, what we consider active members. These are people that they respond to the Meetup messages, they're coming to the meetups. So that's about our membership list. I mean, we'd love to see more people at these, obviously. We don't have a venue that would support 1,650 people, but we do appreciate your time again. We do have continued support from our sponsors, Hayes and Searle, Software Engineering Research Lab, so you'll hear more about that. We do have a new sponsor in Freedom, so we have some exciting projects coming up with them. We are in a sound financial position. It just means we have money in the bank. We'd like more, but it's okay. We're not spending too much. We have our monthly Agile It blog by Luke. It's posted on Medium, and then we also share on our other social media channels. Our monthly events are well attended, and we'll see a couple other events that we're going to add in as well, some workshops and things like that. And we have increased engagement on all our social media channels. So this is what we're hoping to entice some sponsors with, that you get some exposure if you sponsor Agile Auckland. You might get your logo on the sign. All right, some upcoming events. So August 21st, we have Ethne Sweeney, who is here with us today, just to see what this is all about. So thank you for that. September 18th is going to be Nick Ford from Sky City talking about Kanban. October 16th, forming a value management office with David Morris at Vector, so that should be pretty interesting. And then Team Liftoff from Freedom on November 20th. They're writing its whole program on how to lift off Scrum teams, lift up and start new Scrum teams, so it's really cool. And look to see workshops, lean coffees, speaker panels, and Agile X Talks. Agile X Talks is getting people together. If we have an hour and a half, it's just 20-minute talks. It's people in the community that want to brush up on their speaking skills. I think we should all support each other in that because we have so much talent in the room. So why not, pull from that talent, right? So look for those. And then what events would you like to see? So we definitely want to hear your ideas for some events. And with our sponsorship with Freedom, we proudly introduced our new event series called Basics at Breakfast. So Freedom is going to sponsor a monthly breakfast. It will be the Thursday after the Wednesday night meetup. So it's Thursday mornings, 8 to 9. This is for Scrum Masters, right? To build up your Scrum knowledge, your Scrum capability. We're not going to focus on coaches, right? We really want to uplift the Scrum community. And that starts with Scrum Masters. There are not a lot of businesses in Auckland that have Scrum Masters. They'll have coaches, they'll have Scrum teams, but they're missing that integral part of Scrum, which is a Scrum Master. So we really need to build up this capability, and like Jim was saying, it will uplift all of New Zealand if we can do this. So this is our goal with working with Freedom. So we're super, super happy to have this. There'll be food and coffee, and like I said, it'll be Thursday mornings, monthly. The first one will be after our next meeting. So the first one will be August 22nd. We are gonna, it's not gonna be a meetup. The participation is limited to about 25 people per event. And so we'll probably do something with Eventbrite or something like that, because we wanna kind of limit the attendance to people who are those practicing Scrum Masters and need that skill set, that uplift. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to get involved, there's many different ways to get a hold of us. 1 second. So agileaucklandevents@gmail.com, that's our email address. Our meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, Slack. Please join our Slack community if you can, right? That's how we communicate. You'll see a lot of activity on there. We're really hoping to kind of beef up that Slack channel as well. And then we do have our YouTube channel. So all of our events will be recorded this year, and they'll be put on the YouTube channel. So currently we have Gareth Holbrook's talk on there right now. And I'll send something out through the meetup just to remind you of all these ways to get a hold of us. But we're recording tonight, and we'll put those up on YouTube as well. So.
Also, the article I wrote too has got some good notes in there from the famous people.
Oh, good. Yeah, because Luke reviews these events like a movie critic. So watch your stars. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, look for that to be posted as well. So, and yeah, I should have put Medium up there. Sorry about that. Amar, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I need to remind you about the meetup, opening it from now, the future schedules, and the 10-day prior.
Yes, thank you. See, I needed that reminder. I forgot that I asked him to remind me. That's how bad I need reminding. So, what we're going to do is post the meetups. You'll see all of them listed, but we're not going to open up the RSVPs till about 10 days, 2 weeks prior. But because that way you can plan ahead, get your calendar sorted, and then hopefully show up. That'll be awesome. So, okay. That's about it for the AGM. Any questions, concerns, comments, anything to add? Okay.
I feel like clapping.
Oh, okay. No, wait, that's to save it for you. So I'm very, very honored and proud to introduce our guest speaker tonight. So Jim Buchan, also known as Bouchon, he is a professor and researcher at AUT. He's been there for about 18 years. He's a director of the Software Engineering Research Lab. He's one of our sponsors, so we love this partnership with Searle. And I'm gonna have to read this. He currently teaches and researches software development, software engineering, and software requirements engineering. He's fascinated by why Agile techniques are making a difference, and he leans toward empirical, evidence-based software engineering research. So, welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
There's a microphone if you need one.
Oh, who needed a microphone?
Okay.
So this is some research that I did last year with that MYOB, and it started at one of these meetings where Mark came up to me and I was telling him that I was trying to understand this mob programming thing and trying to teach the students a bit about mob programming, but I really didn't get it. And he said, oh look, I've been doing this for years, come out and have a look. And so I came out and had a look, and we got fascinated, and then we talked more about it, and we did a survey. And so I'm just going to present to you some of the results of that survey. So I've been absolutely fascinated with the way Agile is eating the world. And in fact, you can see an article called Agile is Eating the World in Forbes magazine. It was a follow-up from Software is Eating the World. So every company is becoming a software company. And now we're seeing Agile is being adopted by more and more. I've been talking to HR, I've been talking to the C-suite leadership, I've been talking to IT people, all interested in how do we understand this Agile beast and how do we make it help us in some sort of way. So of course I go in and give my 40-minute presentation and we have an instant Agile transformation. I am for sale later on. But it is fascinating, and that's really where I started. Actually, it was around 2010 that I first went into a company who was doing this Agile thing, and I was lucky enough to be able to follow a team around for 4 months like a fly on the wall and do some research with them. And I became absolutely fascinated with it. But of course, the Agile way of working doesn't stand still. It's evolving the whole time because we're in this whole part of the Cinnamon framework where we're looking at complex things when we talk about software development and teams of people and teams of teams and prioritization and so on. So we end up in Agile, the mindset being very much an experimental one, trying stuff out and looking at inspecting and adapting, that kind of thing. Oops, I'm pressing the wrong button. I need my glasses too. And if you have a look, you know, you're starting to see this kind of thing happening, aren't we? We've got hashtag no estimates. I gave a hashtag no projects talk to the startup of our new IT project management program, which we've done like a lead balloon. But hey, it's good to challenge these people. We're seeing all of these different things, and one of the things that's emerged that I'm going to be talking about is this idea of mob programming. And it's one of the practices that's starting to emerge out of experimentation and some of the experiments that are going on in Agile. I started getting interested in it from the conversation with Mark. When I started to read about it, I saw that there was a confusion over the meaning of mob programming, that there are lots of benefits, but actually not all that, lots of claim benefits, but not that much in terms of evidence of those benefits. And there was confusion about how do you do it, what's the best way to do it. There are lots of different ways of doing it. So what we did was basically a case study and then an international survey of mobsters, as we call them. So I'm going to tell you about that. Just to give you some idea, so I'm the co-director of Software Engineering Research Lab, and these are the kinds of things that we look at. So it's very much practical, it's very much about industry-based problems, and it's very much usually problems that have come from conversations with people that have followed up and we've gone, okay, well, let's have a look. Let's get a master's student onto this, let's do some research, let's do some interviews, and so on. And just to give you a very quick idea, we've just done a study on onboarding where we've managed to look at onboarding practices, best practices through a whole variety of companies and match those with onboarding goals for different people. We've looked at the skills capabilities of modern Agile testers, a whole variety of them. A case study in DevOps, which I'm presenting to the DevOps meetup next week. Potential requirements for future releases using a machine learning program that automatically extracted information that looked like it was a potential requirement and started to classify those. So there's all sorts of stuff like that, but I'm going to focus on the mob program one. Just wanted to give you some context. So it's not a new concept. So in fact, way back in 2003, Moses Homan talked about extending the idea of a pair programming to a mob of people, particularly in the concept of refactoring. And so we started to get this idea that mobbing was just an extension of pair programming with more than two people working on some coding program. But it's really evolved a lot more than that. And it was actually Woody Zoll, you can see there, back in 2013, who rediscovered mob programming. And at one of the conferences he was at, he started to talk about it and then talked about a process that he'd been using that was pretty well defined, with driver, who was at the keyboard, navigators who were talking about it and critiquing what was happening and giving instructions what to type, one keyboard, one screen, several people. And he's got his podcast that he talks about that, and he goes around the world talking about it. But we did actually talk to Woody, really interesting guy. And then it's wider adoption. So it's not working all that well. Oh, there we go. Actually, I wanted to show you the day in the life of a mobster. So this is, that's Mark in the whitish shirt. This is Mark here. This is not at MYOB. It's actually at a company that we looked at prior to MYOB. So you can see the keyboard, the people, the screen is in front of us. So they're watching the screen. So we've got a driver. We've got 5 people there. And every so often they go and write something, they'll go and look something up. Here's someone from a different team, popped in. Notice we've got a different driver now. And they're all sitting there talking, chatting. New team guy talks about something else. And then they go off and they have lunch. And another team of people comes out the back, and they're actually some of the product managers and product owners that they wanted to have on hand because they thought they might need to have some questions. So you can see they actually spend the whole day mobbing. So that was one day mobbing. At MYOB, I followed the team around, and their mode of programming was mobbing. That's what they did every day, unless there was a reason not to. Occasionally they would not mob and they would do some pair programming, and very occasionally they would do some solo programming. Mostly they did mob programming. So I was not really expecting that. And I wondered how that could happen. And certainly the claims are that there are lots of benefits, and that you get better code, that the team learns quickly. There's a whole lot of things that Woody and other people put forward as benefits. And we really just wanted to see whether that was true with this team at MYOB. Anyway, it goes on for about 3.5 minutes. It's actually on YouTube now, so you can have a look at it, but I'll leave it there. But it's quite cool, actually. That was a whole day compressed into 3 minutes. And it's quite fun to have a look at it. But of course, I love data, evidence. Show me something that provides some benefits. So what we did was we interviewed some people, looked for some patterns, and I observed them in action several times to see whether what they said was happening. And then we followed that up with a study in terms of asking internationally what do mobsters do. So we did a survey and we got 82 people replying to that. So I'm going to go through the data very quickly. So the curiosity question started with, when should we mob? When should we pair? When should we solo? We didn't really answer that. We really understood what mobbing was, but we got a sense of when mobbing would be useful. And so we tried to unpack the mobbing that was done at MYB to understand what were some of the success factors and the challenges, and then we tried to understand how do other people do it around the world. So just to give you a context, at MYOB, the team that I followed around had 6 developers, 1 tester, 1 BA, and 1 team lead. They were all experienced Agile, So they've been doing Agile for 2 or more years in their way of working. There was one new grad though who hadn't, didn't go to AUT obviously. They had a physical Kanban board, so that was what they used. They did a daily stand-up every day, and that daily stand-up, they would typically decide, do we do mobbing for this piece of work or something else? Or actually, they typically decided, is there any reason not to do mobbing of this piece of work? That was how they phrased the question. They estimated the work items only when they got near the top of the work backlog, product backlog. Typically, they had 2 to 5 days of work planned ahead, and looked at the top 2 or 3 work items on top in a day, and the BA was the person who took that longer view. They used a test-driven design approach, and exploratory design was their emphasis, and all code was reviewed before merging with the production. So they used GitHub and pull requests. So that's the kind of context. It's not too unusual. Yeah.
Did they have to do the peer review if they had a mob?
No, they didn't. So that was one of the things that changed. So when they did the mobbing, in fact, they didn't need to do any peer code reviewing. So the code reviewing was done as part of that mobbing process.
And was the testing, the exploratory testing, was it part of the mob or was it done outside of the mob?
Oh, you're jumping ahead to all my...
You planted these questions, Jim.
Yeah, you'll see, in fact, one of the big challenges was, what do we do with the tester?
Yeah, cool.
How do we fit the tester in here? And they worried and sweated and tried things out over there, and I'll talk about that in a second. It's quite interesting to look at why they even decided to mob that particular team. It wasn't for the traditional reasons that you'd be thinking about. It was because the team had started to get a bit diverse in their standard of coding and their standard of test writing and their ability to write and understand those tests. And so Mark said, well, look, why don't we do some together for a while so that we understand what that standard is, share that understanding, and so on. And it just took off. It really sparked something, and they loved that way of mobbing, and they found there was a whole lot of benefits which they were able to go for. So, mobbing is their default way of working. That's how they basically do most of their work, and I'll talk about how they do that. It's interesting that initially, of course, what happens is the manager comes in and goes, what the hell's happening here? Shouldn't you people all be doing your work separately? Rather than all sitting here, we want parallel work, not all sitting around at one screen. And of course, there needed to be some argument and some evidence to show that this was a good way of working, that it wasn't a waste of time in terms of what's produced. And so they had to talk about, they changed the focus of the manager from resource optimization to flow optimization, and showed that in fact the fewer interruptions, the less work in progress, etc., meant that they were able to produce more end to end in their process. Initially, certainly they were slower in terms of development, but in terms of the end-to-end process for the deliverables for a particular project or product, they were quicker. They were doing less rework. They were getting stuff done to the deliverable standard more quickly. So that worked. Then we talk about the setup at MYOB. So, come on. They went from an existing meeting room. So you saw in that video there was a meeting room where they went to and they had all their different keyboards that they preferred. They went to that to actually having a dedicated area. So they had their work area where they had their Kanban board and people sat down at their individual desks, and they converted an area quite close to that, screened it off, had a big, I think it was a 50-inch screen, quite a big screen, big table, single keyboard, and sometimes people brought their own keyboard, single dedicated CPU, and that worked really well. But that took a while for them to figure out. They found the meeting room really didn't work after a while because it wasn't always available. They went from the whole team, including the QA, to just the developers. And very occasionally the QA and the BA and maybe the product owner would come in and talk and ask a question. But the tester was really getting antsy because she was sitting there going, I don't know what you guys are doing. I'm not sure how I can contribute here, and it went on like that for a little while, and then eventually when they realised, experimented with it, actually it was easier and better for everyone when the tester wasn't there. Most days they do at least 2 hours for a session, sometimes longer. That isn't an MYOB, by the way, in case you're worried. So they typically in a day would do 2 hours, but often they would do longer than 2 hours in their mobbing. Often it would be, you know, a 2-hour session, then another 2-hour session with a break, and then another 2-hour session with a break, and then another 2-hour session. And they might have 5-minute breaks or breaking out every so often to look something up or do something or find something out. So very much that was their way of working. So they had a 60-inch screen and actually had their own laptop. So that worked really well for them. Oh, no, sorry, I take that back. The laptop didn't work very well because it was someone's laptop that they took there, and the problem was they had to use the tools, you know, the text editor, the everything else that that person used. And sometimes the other people weren't using those text editors and the same. So there was this sort of tension that was happening. So they got a dedicated machine and agreed on a set of tools that they were all going to use, and that really simplified things and made it easy. And that central table that was always available really helped them. They went from a very strict 10-minute cycle, which is what Woody specifies. So he says you should change your driver every 10 minutes, next every 10 minutes. They went from doing that initially, very prescriptively, to much more, as we realised that we needed change, let's do that. And it became much more intuitive as they gained experience with that. They found that they gave preference to the inexperienced developer, so that was a newbie, actually was great. That really helped her, it avoided the possible syndrome of the expert getting on there and everyone else being an audience. And so that, they were very sensitive to that after a while. The mobbing got separated from other work, became organically switching. So they might go from this PS going off to understand how the API for this library, come back, report to the rest of them, well, this is how you do it, here's the syntax and so on. And then someone else will go off and say, oh, I've got to go and find this other library or whatever it is. So there was a lot more dynamic and organic, and when I watched it, that's what they were doing. They were very much doing that. So someone would go off with a laptop, come back and say, oh, the syntax is this, and and oh, we need to put this test in here like this, and so on. So there was a lot more of that happening. But that took a while, Mark said, that they started off very much mechanical, following the recipe of Woody's recipe. The driver was very much following instructions. Occasionally they would critique, but they would basically wait to be told what to type in, rather than just going off and doing it. So everyone was pretty active in that. Yes, and as Jaco pointed out, the code review was not needed when they did the mob program. So that was actually a bit of a saving as well. Some of the observed benefits that they saw and were able to show me was the team code ownership emerged, because in fact the whole team was writing the code. It wasn't a case of, I don't know if you've been in a situation where you've got people who write their code and it's very precious to them, and someone critiques it, they are depressed or defensive or whatever. That pretty much disappeared, and very much it was just, there's the code and we're writing it, which was really a really nice feeling. Individuals started to get that broader knowledge of the whole code, not just the bit they'd been writing or the bit that they historically knew about. Everyone started to understand it, which had some big benefits. It meant that you could share the work more easily. It wasn't every time there was a Java thing, you did it, and every time there was you did it. It was actually, most people could do most things. And decisions were better informed because people were better informed about the whole situation. And critical knowledge was not lost if someone was away or on holiday or sick or run over by a bus or whatever. So that loss of critical knowledge was, the risk of that was much less. One of the things that everyone emphasised to me was this increased confidence in the quality of the code, which really boosts team morale. They were much more confident in handing it over. They were much more confident. Sorry. You know, they felt good in themselves about that code, which I think is really was really important. Lost the presentation though.
Oh, great. That's.
So, Liber, I can imagine the
Sorry.
following slide. Yellow. Okay. Is it on? Did it work? Oh, yeah. Some more benefits, consistent use of tools. So that because of a mob programming or one machine with one set of tools, they found that actually improved people's ability to interact with each other. Onboarding the new team member was quicker, they'd said. So they'd onboarded new team members previously, and they said in this way of working, actually it was a lot quicker, particularly if they emphasised them as being one of the drivers. And they found that they were able to predict their workload better, so they could predict how much they could do a whole lot better because they understood, everyone understood the whole code base a whole lot better. So, pretty good. No, really doesn't want to do it. Some more benefits. So there was a reduction in multitasking because they tended to all be together, finishing this task before going on to the next task. It reduced interruptions. They were in a screened off area and the number of interruptions they got was much less. They found that they achieved their aim of getting a higher level of codecraft because the level of codecraft was now at the lowest level of the best coder in their team, rather than that variability from individuals. The good coders lifted everyone else up. There was a reduction in the work in progress, so they finished stuff before bringing other stuff in, and that was much easier to do because everyone was focusing on it, rather than your attention being moved as an individual all over the place. What's doing that? Less technical debt ended up in the code. Mentioned that there were fewer interruptions of their focus. Another interesting one was there was less delay. You know how you're doing something, you think, oh, I'm going to have to ask such and such about this before I can. Well, usually such and such was there in the mob, or they could quickly get them to talk to everyone. So that delay in waiting for information was reduced as well. Who would have thought? All of these kinds of benefits. I'd like to repeat everything. It's not going well. Okay. Let me just press that. Okay. Some of the challenges or risks that they saw. There's the risk that the effort isn't worth it. So there were actually some teams, and I chatted with one team just informally, who gave up on mobbing. So they decided, nah, it's not something that we want to do. It's not working. It's too hard. It wasn't comfortable for them, so they actually gave up on it. Another possible challenge that Mark found was the density of interpersonal interaction was amplified. So if there were people who didn't get on, the fact that those people were sitting together for hours on end was amplified. And in fact, I got to be honest, there was a couple of people that I could see the tension between when I was sitting with them in that mob, and they had some disagreement previously. So that actually is something that Mark said they all became much more sensitive to and aware of, and took steps to deal with. And then there's the risk of isolation. So someone who does prefer to have solo work or hasn't got good interpersonal skills, doesn't want to be part of the mob, can become a bit isolated. You know, there's the mob, all having a good time, and there's what's going on. And so that isolation can happen. So again, they had to be very aware of that. They found that starting to happen with one person. The workplace was one of the challenges that they found. That really took them a while to get a good workplace, get the money, get the resources, make it all happen. So the role of the tester in the mob and the slower pace of coding, particularly initially, was a challenge. And particularly if you've got some sort of pressure, of time pressure, and that's the dominant thing that's pushing you forward, then you may not have the luxury of just doing mobbing at that particular point in time. And they had a couple of times where that situation happened. So the lessons that they learned were a mobbing team size of 3 to 4 developers, what seemed to be the optimum. So not too many, not too few. A mix of modes and some reflection on the mobbing worked very well, particularly at the start. So not doing all mobbing initially, but doing some mixture at the start till they got the hang of mobbing, and reflecting on what's happening and what can we do to improve. That really ended up with them mobbing and it being really highly productive for that team. So new team members needing to adjust into mobbing. So that graduate hated it, absolutely hated it initially. I'll show you the quote in just a second. It took a while for this new team member to really understand, but by the end of it they were fine. See you, Amar. I'm sorry I'm not entertaining enough, but you go.
I love you, Jim. I have a prior engagement, that's the only reason.
Sorry, I told him I'd embarrass him.
No one else better leave.
So, right, no, sorry. Some of the other lessons they learned was that it was very useful to be quite prescriptive initially. So do the 10-minute change and do all the rules that Woody has talked about, the navigators and the driver and so on and so on. But then that need became much more organic as they understood where the value was and what things they could change. It's a lot like a lot of people using Scrum, and they start to understand what they can change. It's the shu-ha-ri, isn't it? Those of you familiar with it's, we're following the recipe initially to, okay, we understand what we can in our context, change a bit to, I am the master and I can create my own idea, that idea. Time boxing they found to be very effective, so they took breaks every 20 to 30 minutes, and then they took a longer break, usually 10 minutes or so after 2 hours, and obviously lunchtime was in there somewhere. So that time boxing they found quite a good discipline. To avoid it going stale. They avoided the expert driving for too long, so they avoided that spectator syndrome, and they encouraged the novice drivers because they found it accelerated their learning and increased participation. And actually increased the diversity of the discussion. Because when you're the novice and you're getting told to do something, you're going, what do you mean? Or why are you doing that? And everyone goes, why are we doing that? Because we've always done it that way. So those were good. They found those kind of things quite useful. So here was a quote from the team member. So everyone kept a journal initially, so I actually had a look at some of the journals of their mobbing experience. So the new team member initially, at the beginning of the journey, I'm not bringing any value to the team, they're too fast for me, I'm not given time to come up with solutions myself. She was feeling really inadequate. I'm lost. There was that kind of feeling initially. But they persevered and they encouraged her to keep driving. And 3 months later, I learned a lot from this mobbing experience, more experienced developers without me knowing it. I guess the results are only seen a bit later. Overall, mobbing has really helped my current team deliver, spread and solidify our skills and knowledge. So she was really bought into it after about 3 months, that was. So interesting. So that was the experience at MIOB, and so we were interested in, well, what does the rest of the world do? We wondered whether they did the same kinds of things was it the same kind of team composition, the same kind of frequency, the same kind of thing, you know, as a mob in the USA, a bit different to a mob in Aussie or a mob in the UK. I like the, I think that could be really a Kiwi mob, couldn't it? Yeah. Or maybe it's cows, no, more cows probably. So what we did was did a survey. So we used the contacts that Mark and I had internationally and emailed them and told them to email their friends to the survey. And we actually got about 90 people responding, but about 8 of them didn't do it correctly. So we had to ignore them. So we ended up with 82, I think it was. And so we analysed those. So we were looking at what's your mobbing context, what's the practice you use. We were interested in this concept of would a mob work if everyone is sort of introspective and, you know, there's this stereotype that developers are introspective and don't like working with other people. Well, we wondered if a mob wouldn't work if they were introspective. So we asked a little bit about that, and we asked people what they thought the benefits of mobbing were. So here's our results. In terms of the actual respondents, the 82 respondents, you can see about 3/4 of them were developers who had at least 3 months mobbing experience, and they reported themselves as being slightly introspective. But some, 9% of them were extrovert, and about 1/4 of them classified themselves as extroverts. Sorry, I'll let you go.
You need a note.
In terms of the context, the wider process of what they did, mostly Kanban, interesting, and a few with Scrum. Mostly their development team size, not their mobbing size, but their development team was 4 to 8 of developers, testers, analysts, etc. So not too dissimilar actually to the situation at MYOB, and probably not too dissimilar to a lot of the situations I've seen. The nature of their mobbing, so you can see their mob size was in that 3 to 5 range for 80% of them, so by far the most popular size was 3 to 5. Few had a mob of 2, which didn't realise that was called a pair.
AUT group.
Right? 50% of them said that's their usual way of working, that's their default way of working. I was quite surprised it was that high. About 50% of them said they mob most days, so that correlates, that matches up. And the mobbing duration, about 2/3 of them said most of the day would be spent mobbing. So, quite surprising. Personality dispositions, we asked them, so we looked up personality dispositions and used some standard ones. And said, what do you think have the biggest impact in terms of success of your mob? And open to new experiences was the #1 disposition that they said would make a successful team. Agreeableness and conscientiousness were up there, but look, degree of extroversion, 0. Emotional stability. Very good. We don't need emotional stability.
Yeah.
And personality trait with the least impact, which is the reverse of that, just as a check, and you can see extroversion is in there. So quite interesting. They perceived benefits, so we said, what do you think are the benefits? And certainly learning from other people was the big one. Increasing code quality was a big benefit that they saw, and that's 80% almost. And just the ability and the privilege almost of sharing with others is what we got. We like to be able to share with others, and we like to have others share with you. So again, quite interesting, the perceived benefits. Not that technical apart from the code one. So let's just quickly summarise. So mobbing was most closely associated with an agile way of working. Kanban style would be the most prevalent there. The mobs were 3 to 5. The mobbing was often daily with extended periods of time, but not often to start with. Introverted team members was not a barrier. Didn't really matter in the whole equation. The most impactful personality dispositions or traits was being open to new experiences and agreeableness. So I think if people were very confrontational or the like, it would have been harder to do that. And also the learning aspect of it and knowledge sharing were also clear drivers in terms of the outcomes that they wanted there. I think those are the kinds of outcomes a lot of us would like. Improving code quality and quicker problem solving were part of it, were seen as those themes as well. So, conclusion. Why not? Give it a go. Try mobbing, maybe not in a swimming pool, but hey. Try it out, and of course, inspect and adapt. Experiment, reflect, make a change. Certainly what I saw was incredibly powerful. I was very surprised, I must admit. I thought they would do a bit of mobbing here and there. I have teams of students now who do most of their coding as a mob. And what I've found is the learning accelerates for those people who are going in with a lower technical ability particularly. But actually the people who've got the high technical ability, teaching it, they find it very rewarding and it consolidates their understanding as well. So, give it a go. We have got some other research plans, but you're probably not that interested in it. We're going to do some experiments. We've got those planned. It's a duplication of an experiment I saw in South Africa. We're looking at some theories that we can apply from psychology and the likes. And we're going to expand our survey. Mark's just finished a book on mob programming. So this is a shameless promotion of that. So it's available on Amazon or in Prague. And I'm open to questions or comments or suggestions or whatever.
I've got one reasonably narrow one.
Yes.
But the mobbing replacing code reviews.
Yes.
In a regulated environment, have you seen how that works? So,
I see what you mean.
compliance
So
with code reviews.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if there's a...
Not all code reviews were replaced by mobbing. So there were dependencies between teams, for example. So some teams would be code reviewing other teams' work. There were sort of compliance type reviews that were done also. Yeah, so this is really the day-to-day, before we put this into GitHub and merge it in, we want to see somebody look at it so that we can learn from it, suggestions, that kind of thing.
I think mobbing should replace some,
yes,
even compliance code reviews, because you are having
potential
multiple eyes, so
yes,
you are achieving the spirit of what it's after, but
it depends on the compliance.
Case studies of what kind of compliance it is.
Yeah, it depends on the compliance.
And how open the regulator is to
exactly. But yeah, I think there's potential for that. I know Orion do something in that area, Orion Health.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, did you have any insight into the benefits of going from zero mob programming to establishing it, when it becomes beneficial? So if you're looking
time frame.
Yeah, if you're looking to trial it within a small to medium-sized team, obviously day one's not going to be straight off the bat. There'll be some trial and error, but in your experience, what's the sort of realistic time frame for a team?
That team said it took them about 6 months before they were really comfortable with it, and closer to a year before they were actually humming.
Wow.
Did they have some measures just to illustrate the benefits, like quality of code or?
Yep. So they measured technical debt. They had intangible or benefits that were based on their logs, their diary kind of things that they were keeping. So seeing people saying that their confidence was improving in their code, and the amount that they were delivering actually increased in terms of going from idea to deploy. Initially their coding was slower, compared to everyone doing their own thing. But they found that actually end-to-end, so they had less rework to do. They got their work was better quality. It was easier to maintain, and so on and so on. So, you know, the payoffs were longer term rather than that initial thing. You know. And as I say, some of the teams didn't go over; they never got to that comfortable stage. So I think, I think different contexts.
Just adding to the previous question, is there a way of onboarding mobbing slowly by using perhaps pairing fields? I'm just thinking of Richard Sheridan and my innovation.
Yeah, they had always been pairing, so most of the teams there do some pair programming for different things. They did they didn't go bang all mobbing, so they did periods of mobbing, which tended to be situations that were really hard, like a really complex piece of code or problem that everyone was sweating over, and so they would actually mob that together and work it out and brainstorm and work it out and then share the understanding. So those tended to be the kinds of things initially. I mean, obviously mobbing isn't going to be that useful for a trivial exercise, I think, and something that's easy. So it tended to be the tricky innovation, how do we extend that, given that we've got this, those kinds of things. Or if they were using some new libraries or new technology, then that mobbing really, it meant the learning was very quick and it was shared very quickly, which had a whole lot of spin-offs actually. Just in terms of I don't have to rely on one team member for different things, and people are away. It's not such a big deal. Yeah.
Did they use Scrum or Kanban?
That team used Kanban. The teams had a choice what they could use.
Because I see this more working, I might be wrong, more working with Kanban, because when you do Scrum, it's like, the velocity of the team will completely drop when you start doing it. So that's what I'm looking at is probably Kanban, because it's just going by what you're doing.
Yeah, they were doing lumps of work, as you saw. I think they were looking at 2 to 5 days ahead, so it's kind of a sprint.
And I think you're less worried about the user story and the acceptance criteria when you do it all together. You've got it all there together as a collective, and you're just going to smash it out. So
that's probably the Kanban will work better than that.
I think it's more of a natural fit. It's a process, and you check it in, and you go to the next level, moving through that.
Yeah, but in terms of their overall process, it wasn't a traditional flow through Kanban.
See you, Jim.
Miranda, it has been a pleasure having you.
Oh, you're trumped by my husband.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay.
Any other questions for Jim? Well, thank you.
Try in some situation.
Yeah, definitely try it. Sounds super fascinating. So, thank you all for coming again. Our next event is August 21st, right here, same time, same station. So, if you need anything, same back channel, right? And we'll post the video on YouTube, maybe the slides if you're willing, okay? And look for that on all of our social media channels. So I'll send out a follow-up email, but thank you all for coming. Have a good night. Thanks.